How many of you recognize all three of these people? About 25 years ago, when the wire-haired gentleman on the left, Charles Courtney, known as CJ, a prosthetist from Washington, D.C., put us all together in an attempt to revolutionize the industry, brought forth his vision. I didn't know how good a friend he would become in the following years. He was the most honorable, honest, and artistic practitioner I've ever met. One of his lectures described how generous our industry is, and if you have to make a donation to someone, don't be afraid to ask the manufacturers to donate the components. We all exist in a humanitarian effort, and we should never lose focus on that goal. In the process, we've contacted Comfort, True Life, Oser, and Autobach for components, and they were all generous enough to donate the appropriate parts. Charlie taught us how to be smart about charity, and though he is no longer with us, his spirit will live in all of us who knew him.
After cast modifications, a skilled technician can produce 4 Endoflex transtibial prostheses per day. Its integrated pylon and thermoplastic construction obviously saves hours of labor per unit. Of course, the proper equipment is necessary: an insulated infrared oven, a powerful vacuum system capable of drawing 29 inches of mercury, cast cutters, most important, a prosthesis extractor, a 1.5-ton cable wench capable of removing the prostheses from the monolithic mold with the press of a button. A high-speed drum sander and a variable speed router with polishing equipment is also necessary to maximize production efficiency.
I was fortunate enough to be asked by Tom Valenti to assist in fitting prosthetic devices in Haiti. Tom had previously casted, modified, and designed the equipment. He prepped me on the simplicity of the devices and to realize that all tools necessary would have to be transported there. For the transtibial prostheses, we would need a pylon cutter, which was nothing more than a PVC pipe cutter, a pair of scissors to cut the adjustable cuff to length, a Phillips screwdriver to set the toe-out screws, and a heat gun to make alignment and socket adjustments if necessary. The design of the power source was uncertain, so it was brought to my attention that an outlet adapter might be needed. Off to Radio Shack to purchase a universal plug adapter, just in case. The transfemoral patient would need all the standard tools: pipe cutter, Allen wrenches, and Loctite. For the transhumeral patient, all that was needed is a pair of scissors and wire cutters to make the appropriate adjustments on the shoulder harness. One last item Tom had promised for a patient was a foam cover. Therefore, we pulled together a 2-part foam kit with pigment, which included a mold, cup for mixing, a high-speed mixer, and a tape to seal the mold. All prostheses had the allotted stump socks, an AK belt for suspension, and to ensure a successful outcome, proper footwear was donated. Tom had acquired all shoes to the liking of each lower extremity amputee. Now the next question was, how do we transport all the gear? Thank heavens for Costco, where we discovered some lightweight, inexpensive rolling totes to contain the devices and tool bag. And now, as you can imagine, the tool bag is becoming heavier, as I toss more just-in-case tools into that bag. We left on Thursday morning to arrive approximately at 2 p.m. with a tentative schedule to start fittings on Friday, follow up on Saturday, and leave on Sunday. Our arrival was prompt. We were thinking that it would be possible to begin fittings ahead of schedule. Dr. Carroll acknowledged our eagerness and said, "We'll see how it goes." What we didn't realize was that things move much slower in Haiti. The only feat accomplished was stopping by the hospital to see if we could find Dr. Figuero, ophthalmologist, who had interest in managing the prosthetic project. We were able to locate him and set up a time for Friday at 10 a.m. The following morning we arrived with hopes that all amputees would return as asked. Though they live in poverty, they all carried cell phones, making it easy to communicate. Dr. Carroll drove us to the hospital, and once on hospital grounds, we were met with hundreds of Haitians standing outside the dozens of tents pitched for them by various relief teams. Beds were neatly made, hair was being braided, and young children were kicking an empty cup on the ground as if they were playing soccer. This observation was quite an experience in itself. 45 minutes later, we were given a room big enough for a desk, a chair for a patient, and standing room for 3 people. Our first patient was Bertoni, a transtibial, anxious for this day to arrive as he was one of the first patients lined up outside the hospital that morning waiting to be seen. Fortunately, he could speak some English, which made the fitting much easier. He was fit on the hard socket with 3-ply, the pylon was shortened 1/4 of an inch, no other adjustments were required, so now it was time for Maureen to give a crash course in gait training. Due to the limited space and the need for the room to be used by other physicians, we had to perform gait training in the hallway entrance of the hospital, utilizing a church pew for parallel bars. There was no privacy. People didn't know each other, but there were many smiles exchanged, and they all stared in amazement as Bertoni strutted down the hall with his crutches. The next BK amputee was a beautiful young lady who spoke no English, but we somehow knew communication with her would be rather easy. She seemed to have an innate sense of what was occurring, and with her agility and muscular body, mastered ambulation with great ease. Mary Jo was fit with 5-ply on the hard socket, the pylon was shortened 3/8 of an inch, and we adjusted the toe out. Before long, Mary Jo and Bertoni were walking side by side down the poorly lit corridor, silently exchanging nods. Of course, sock management and donning and doffing procedures were practiced. We were amazed how quickly these 2 young adults grasped the techniques in short time. Next, we would see the transfemoral patient, Mr. Laguerre, an intelligent, dignified older man who demonstrated patience and understanding, which certainly made our job a lot smoother. Once again, we adjusted the height, and he fit with 1-ply and began ambulating with the assistance of a walker. In the midst of our work, we were informed that we had to change rooms as our doctor needed it. We gathered our gear and waited another 30 minutes in the hallway until they found a temporary room. As we sat and waited, I looked around to see the number of people with young children waiting to be seen by a physician. Despite the temperature and length of time, not one peep was uttered from the youngsters. The last 2 remaining to be seen were Mr. Anesi, the mature BK wearer, who would ultimately receive the cosmetically finished prosthesis, and the transhumeral amputee. This is when things began to get sticky, and I do mean sticky. Wait, did I mention that it was 100 degrees in the shade? The BK prosthesis fit very well using the insert and a 1-ply sock. After shortening the pylon 1/2 inch, the prosthesis was now ready for a foam cover. Although this gentleman loved the fit, it was equally important that his prosthesis had a finish. The Haitians are a very proud culture, and therefore appearance is important to them. Notice Mr. Anesi's well-pressed red outfit? The foam normally cures in 15 minutes and is then ready for demolding. We began the foaming process and informed the patient it would take about 1/2 hour before it would return to him. In the meanwhile, we diverted our attention to the cardiology student, Jean-Louis. Since we neglected to bring the cream, we experienced much difficulty donning the socket. We combed the hospital for cream, soap, or something to help us. Nothing. Instead, we cut a hole in the socket and used a draw saw. But remember, we did not pack a drill. We simply heated the socket to a semi-soft state and used a razor blade to make a circular cut. It worked, but we're still unable to draw the residuum completely into the socket. We still needed a lubricant. We had cream back at the hotel, but would have to wait till tomorrow. The patient was very disappointed that he will not be able to take the delivery of his prosthesis. Now, enough time had lapsed, the foam cover should be cured. Dr. Carroll excused himself and said he would return shortly. As the mold was being removed, we realized the foam is neither hard nor soft, just sticky. so sticky it adheres to your fingers when touched. Our only option is to leave the mold on and let it sit a while longer. Within minutes, Dr. Carroll pops his head in to tell us he has found cream. He had jogged to a friend's house and was able to retrieve some. After applying the lotion to the arm, the prosthesis slid right into place. Adjustments to the harness took 20 minutes, and Jean-Louis was able to control hand opening and closing through scapular abduction, picking up glasses and small objects, grinning from ear to ear while performing each task.